Okay, so yesterday, UFC Fight Night, Dawson versus Green happened, and I'm a little late to talking about this. I was busy yesterday, so I didn't get to make a video, but I'm going to talk about it now. I'm going to go over the results of the fights, the performances, and maybe we'll talk about what some of these guys are going to do next. So I'm just going to start with Bill Algeo versus Alexander Hernandez. That was the opening fight on the card. I got the pick right. I picked Bill Algeo to win. I picked him by 29-28. Unanimous decision. He ended up winning 30-27. It didn't really go the way I thought it would, to be honest. Alexander Hernandez, he did better than I expected. He still clearly didn't do enough to win. But usually Hernandez, he's one of those guys that tends to start really strong, win the first round, and then fade. This fight, he actually did better as the fight went on. I feel like he did a little bit better every round. He did get dropped in the second, so that otherwise he maybe would have won that round, but he got dropped, and then every other round he just got outdone. So it was a good performance by Bill Algeo. I don't know what is next for Alexander Hernandez. He's just one of those guys. He always wins one and then loses one, or he wins one and loses two. I'm surprised he's kind of still around. He's probably going to get like one more shot. I bet if he loses his next fight, he gets cut. But regardless, it was a good fight for Bill Algeo. Moving up, next fight was Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn. Oof, poor Ricky Glenn, man. Drew Dober, he completely obliterated him. It wasn't a close fight. He just beat him up really bad, finished him in the first round, knocked him out. There wasn't really much to say about it. Ricky Glenn had absolutely nothing for him. The most he did in that fight was a glove grab, like a really bad glove grab. Both hands hooked in Drew Dober's glove, trying to pull Drew Dober to the ground as Drew Dober is like literally dragging him on his butt. He's dragging around the octagon and he's looking at the ref like, hey, this guy's got his fingers on my glove. You gonna do anything about it? And the ref didn't really do anything. It was probably the worst glove grab in the history of the UFC, but it didn't matter because as soon as Ricky Glenn got up, oh yeah, he grabbed the glove, and then Drew Dober gets out of it or whatever, and then Ricky Glenn's like, come back down here, and Drew Dober's like, nah, get up. And then as soon as he gets up, Drew Dober, he brutally disposed of him. It was a great performance for Drew Dober, but against a guy that we knew he was going to destroy. Ricky Glenn had no chance in that fight. So up next for Drew Dober, I'd like to see him fight either someone just out of the rankings or maybe in the rankings. I think the Jalen Turner fight is there. He called out Jalen Turner a couple fights ago. They haven't fought yet. Jalen Turner's coming off a loss to Dan Hooker. I think that'd be a great fight. I'd love to see it. So maybe that's next for Drew Dober. The next fight was Joaquin Buckley versus Alex Morono. This one, so I picked Joaquin Buckley so far. I've gotten all these fights right so far, and maybe not the way they happen. I did pick Drew Dober by KO. Joaquin Buckley, I picked him to win. He was very unimpressive to me. DC was really singing his praises at the end of the fight, telling him it was the best performance of his career. I completely disagree. I thought he didn't look very good. He was really struggling to find the right shots early in the fight. He didn't really start picking it up until the third round. I get that he won every round, but Alex Morono didn't look good either. They both looked much worse than they usually do, to be honest. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because Alex Morono fights weird, and Buckley is one of those guys who just swings really wild. He goes kind of crazy, and if he doesn't catch people with it, then it looks kind of silly. But yeah, it was a very unimpressive performance in my opinion. It didn't make me believe in Joaquin Buckley. There was a time when I did believe Joaquin Buckley could be something. Like I thought he was going to be a good fighter, and he is good, but I thought he could be top 15, And right now I'm not so sure. I think next fight he'll probably get someone in the rankings or just outside. But yeah, it wasn't a great performance. I'd like to see him fight. Maybe he could fight a Neil Magny, or maybe he could fight a Kevin Holland, or someone like that. Kevin Holland coming off a loss, Neil Magny coming off a loss. There's a couple guys outside the rankings that he could fight. He could fight like a Max Griffin maybe, or a Nico Price. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know who he could beat at this point. Like I don't think he beats Kevin Holland in a rematch. I think he could probably beat Neil Magny because most people could beat Neil Magny at this point. So maybe that's the fight to do. The way he's been fighting, I don't see him performing well in the top 15. I think 13 or 14 out of the 15 top guys will beat him. So that's that. Next fight is Joe Pyfer versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. It went pretty much exactly how I thought it would. Joe Pyfer is an absolute beast. That dude he hits so hard for the division. He has really fast hands, and he seems to be pretty well rounded. His wrestling didn't look like it was the most skillful thing ever, but I've seen his grappling matches. In his grappling matches, he is a very skilled wrestler. In this fight, he was just very physical. He was so strong, and he's such a big dude for middleweight, and he's so athletic. The way he picked up Abdul and just slammed him on the ground more than once. He did it twice in the fight, I believe. Once in the first round, once in the second round. And in the second round, it led straight into an arm triangle finish. And the whole first round, he was piecing up Abdul. Abdul had nothing for him until the second round when he started landing those calf kicks. Those were bothering Joe Pyfer, but it was one of those things where he was like, oh, this is starting to hurt. I think I'll finish the fight now. And that's exactly what he did. Picked him up, slammed him on the ground. It looked like he may have injured Abdul's arm. The way Abdul reacted weird to when he got slammed, and his arm was out like this when he landed, and he landed on it funny. And I mean, he didn't like scream or anything. Like nothing's broken, but I bet it hurt really bad. He made a face like it hurt really bad, and he looked like he was done right after the slam. It didn't even look like the choke had to get sunk in. He just looked kind of done. He taps to the choke, but he taps with a closed fist. The ref doesn't really notice it, and he goes to sleep. This is how it goes. Joe Pyfer, super bright future at middleweight. Really fun to watch. He's definitely one of my favorite prospects. I wish the dude would stop telling everybody about how hard his upbringing was, though. Like, it's cool that he's built something for himself with a really rough background, but he says it literally every fight, and after a while the sob story just gets a little bit annoying. I hope that's not too insensitive, but it's just true to me. Anyways, final fight on the card, Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. Congratulations to Bobby Green. It was a great performance, I guess, or a great finish. I do think it was a little fluky. I'm not just saying that because I picked Grant Dawson. It's just, how often do you see somebody get knocked? There's not a lot of sub 30-second knockouts in the lower weight divisions generally. You don't see Bobby Green getting a ton of early knockouts, and I don't think if they fight 10 times, I don't see that happening very often. Like that's like a 1 out of 50 times, I feel like, type thing to happen. Regardless, good for Bobby Green. I'm okay with him winning, to be honest, because I think he has more entertaining fights in the top of the division. Like Bobby Green versus Dan Hooker would be an amazing fight. Bobby Green versus Jalen Turner would be an amazing fight. Bobby Green versus Rafael Fiziev in a rematch would be awesome. Like, he could have a lot of fun fights at the top of the division, definitely more fun than Dawson. But I still think Grant Dawson has a brighter future. Grant Dawson is still young. He's like 20-2 now. He was 20-1, I believe, going into this fight. And he got caught. That's just how it is. He was swinging a little too wild on the feet. Walks into a punch. It sucks for him. But I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back better than ever. We've seen a lot of great fighters get stopped at some point in their career. I mean, Islam Makhachev early in his UFC career got knocked out in the first round as well. So it's a setback, and it sucks, but it is what it is. I'm sure he'll come back stronger. And as for Bobby Green, I think he called for Dan Hooker in his post-fight press conference. I think that's a great fight, and I know Renato Moicano called him out as well. That would also be a great fight. But I would expect Bobby Green versus Dan Hooker to probably be made here in December, because he said he wants to fight December. So I'd be on the lookout for that fight. And if they fight, honestly, it's a close fight. I think it could go either way. So I'm excited to see that if it happens. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. If you could subscribe, that would be cool. I will talk to you guys later. And goodbye.